If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started.
Salamat JN, George at Sir Nanding. Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. I am pleased to present the gist of the discussions about the two topics that we had this morning on planned parenting in the new normal. We are now 8 months in the pandemic. Some were restricted to leave their homes that added to the anxiety and stress for most of us. Most people were drawn to go back into practicing the skills they already know. Some cope by trying to learn a new skill set, while some turn their attention to gardening enough to distract themselves from the negative psychosocial effects of the pandemic. These skills help them manage their emotions during the challenging time of this outbreak. Being plantitas and plantitas, we were drawn with the beauty of greenery filling out our homes as a way of coping with the pandemic. There is a continued need to address the protection of our delicate ecosystem. With the unrelenting increase in the demand of rare type plants, the topics for the webinar this morning pretty much covered the basic considerations before one plant parent, plantito or plantita, indulge in this trend, as discussed by Sir George Sahagun in the first topic. Mr. Sahagun emphasized that before tending your plants, one has to revisit the purpose of plant parenting. It starts with identifying the purpose or intention of engaging into plant parenting. It is a commitment that will define the direction of your plant parenting journey. Having a clear intention of purpose on why you want to buy or collect plants will drive your commitment to care for them in a sustainable way. Finding the beauty in your collection or use of our collection in our daily lives will also inspire us to care more for them as time goes by. Secondly, it was discussed that plant parents should assess their space by knowing the limits of the area where they plan to put up their garden. The area where the plants can thrive should probably be well considered. As a living things, plants need space to grow well. Evaluating the space where we wanted to build our garden or sanctuary will ensure that they will receive proper care. In addition, we must also know the lighting conditions of our home. This will aid us in selecting the appropriate plants to use. Thirdly, identify your plants correctly. Scientific names are the international nomenclature that will point us to a specific plant that you want. If you are serious to adopt a plant, we must know its real name, otherwise we are bound to fail in this plant parenting journey. Common names are usually based on locality and most of the time confusing. So information on scientific names are meant to describe the plant, their origin, and sometimes their conservation status. After you have identified your plants correctly, duplicating the natural habitat should also be done. The best way to care for the plant babies is to give them the right condition based on their natural habitat. Successful plant parenting relies on our clear understanding of plant physiology and ecology. For example, there is no sense buying plants that thrive in high elevation and pushing them to adapt in lowlands. Finally, maybe after you have exhausted the above mentioned activities, you should spend time learning more and then sharing what you have learned. Understanding their needs require our attention and time. As sessile organisms, plants do not communicate like human beings and have other ways of showing their needs to survive. Spending time to study the different symptoms, such as the yellowing of leaves, stunted growth, is our cue to give them the correct fertilizers or proper potting mix or watering regime. Posting our concerns to social media without having a good time investigating will not help the plants immediately, but doing a good research will do. In addition, to ensure recovering a copy of our precious collections, It is a good practice to share our propagation or swapping plants with other enthusiasts, thereby establishing a good community of plant parents. In the second topic, it was emphasized that there is a need to adopt methods of plant breeding without endangering our already endangered species. We have all witnessed the beautiful man-made plants, mutants in today's second talk. Mr. Auriga discussed that some of these abnormal plants are natural mutations that occurred spontaneously, then discovered, isolated, and eventually propagated and utilized by humans. But some desirable changes and characteristics are artificially induced to create variation in otherwise uniform genetic materials, create and make use of new traits lacking in available varieties, address abiotic and biotic stresses brought about by climate change, and improve plants that do not produce flowers, fruits, or viable seeds. It is also notable that we have been introduced to some edible crops that we thought looked normal, but the physiological attributes are actually due to mutation. It is very interesting to know that mutation breeding is not only applicable to ornamental plants, it can also be done on banana, cashew, rice, to name a few. The rarity or limited number of plants available for commercialization entails high demand, and these abnormal plants are initially expensive and command higher prices. And this is now made possible with DUST PNRI. They offer technical and gamma irradiation services for students, researchers, and interested hobbyists who wanted to create what we call abnormal plants during the new normal. Again, should you wish to know more or avail of the services of the OSCP-NRI, you can visit the Irradiation Services application tab in their website. You can check the schedule of fees as posted in the link and a separate link to proceed with your irradiation services application. Before ending this presentation, let me refresh you with some concerns discussed during the Q&A. On how we can encourage our young students to be responsible future plantitas and plantitas, Sir George explained that we should teach the students through or by showing them the good effects of gardening, that simply if we show them that the nature takes care of us, then we should take care of them as well. Sir Nanding added that we let them see garden shows to appreciate gardening. On having a green thumb, Sir George explained that having a green thumb, based on his personal experience, being exposed at a very young age, he was able to decipher that being a successful gardener is being good at caring for your plants. On how we can eradicate spider mites in its rapid spread in alocasia, Sir George said it was a big problem. Yes, it was a big problem in alocasia. It thrives in a warm and humid environment. So if there is a big infestation, you can use soap, mild soap solution as scrub, or use neem oil as an effective remedy. On what other ornamental plants can be improved, Sir Nanding explained that any ornamental plants can be irradiated, but he suggests those asexually propagated, such as cactus and succulents. On achieving a dwarf size of flowering plants, Sir Nanding explained it is genetic and may not flower if not induced in a proper environment, and have not yet met its appropriate requirements. For those that are naturally tall plants, he explained that we cannot trigger it manually to flower, but environment should be conducive for it to flower. On having available mutant lakatan planting materials, since IPB is handling these kind of projects, Sir Nading suggested that for those who are inquiring about these planting materials, Sir Nading refer them to the National Seed Foundation. Then for the free accessible journeys, DUSC PNRI has available online materials in its offices where the published articles are featured. On whether mutant uh, crops are safe to eat, Sir Nanding clarified that it is still safe to eat, and also considering we eat gamma irradiated products such as those that inhibit bacterial growth in our body system. On whether we need to mutate those mutants that we have already or have already undergone mutation, Certain Ding explained that those plants that are already mutated, the mutant or variety can still be irradiated to create another variety. And on the question on how long this pandemic craze will go on, since this is a special trend that puts up a hefty price in our ornamental plants, Sir George believed that the price will be normalized in the long run, but this will create a new trend. Sir Nanding added that even if this pandemic will still persist because of the long-term effect of this crisis. This trend will continue, hopefully in the next generation. Again, muli, maraming salamat at magandang umaga.
Thank you, Ate Kim. Reminders po ulit sa ating mga participants, pakisagutan po ang ating CSF para po makatanggap kayo ng Electronic Certificate of Participation o katibayan na kayo ay umattend sa webinar natin ngayon. Maaari po kayong mag-follow up sa email address na naka-flash sa inyong screen kung hindi po kayo nakatanggap o makatanggap ng e-certificate after 10 days. To formally close our webinar, we have this morning Dr. Juanito T. Batalon, the officer in charge of the Executive Director for Research and Development of DOST Picard. Sir Johnny?
A pleasant morning to everyone. On behalf of today's webinar organizers, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for your participation in the successful conduct of this online activity. I would also like to thank our resource speakers, Mr. George R. Sahagun and Mr. Fernando B. Origue of DOS PNRI for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us today. I believe that their participation in this activity leads to larger interest in the ornamental plants industry. Before I close this program, let me underscore the main points in the previous discussions. First, creating what we called abnormal plants in the new normal is made possible with DOS PNRI. Secondly, rarity is one of the most sought after attribute or a characteristic in plants that can demand high price. But it is very important that we do not tolerate the collection of rare and endemic ornamental species from the wild to give in to the plantito and plantita craze. Lastly, as plant parents, let us do our part by balancing possession and conservation for the next generation. The DOST Picard is pleased to have partnered with PNRI and the De La Salle University Das Marinas in creating potential new varieties of Alocasia. Being classified as critically endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, through mutation breeding, which is a pioneer breeding platform for Alocasia species in the country. We are looking forward to the release of these new varieties and to the many possibilities with other ornamental plant species. We at DOST Picard trust that the learnings you have cultivated today will help you in navigating the new normal. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend this webinar. I hope that this activity brings you renewed and better interest in plant parenting with or without pandemic. May you continuously find comfort and joy in tending your houseplants, and I also hope that you found this webinar interesting, fruitful, and engaging. Again, magandang umaga at mabuhay tayong lahat.